Well, Buen Camino Pilgrims, I am Jeremiah Gibbs. I'm your Camino guide, and today I'm going to be doing a gear review of the shoe that I just wore on a section hike of the Appalachian Trail. As I was kind of exploring this as a possibility for a new shoe for me. The new shoe is an Altra Timp 3.0, and I'm going to be talking about the Altra Timp 3.0 as well as some of the things that I learned about the Altra shoes and some of the other models that they have, and hope that this will be helpful for you. If you want to learn more about gear, logistics, spirituality of Camino de Santiago, then please subscribe to this channel. And if you would, just click the like button. That's going to tell the YouTube algorithm that this is helpful content for people like you that are learning about Camino, and it'll send it out, and that really helps me, and I appreciate when you click the like button and help this video get out to other people. So today I'm going to give a pretty simple review of the Altra Timp 3.0 and talk a little bit about why I decided to give this shoe a try. I said in my Solomon video, and I will link to the Solomon video in the description and up above, but Solomon XA Pro were my shoes for I think 5 or 6 Caminos, and those did fairly well for me. I did get some blistering from time to time on my toes just from being a little bit cramped at points, but for the most part the Solomon XA Pro has been a pretty good shoe for me. But I tried the Altras for 2 reasons. First of all, the XA Pros are a little narrow in the front of the foot, which is why sometimes I've gotten a few toe blisters and things like that from them, but they were really good and have always been really good on the bottom of my foot and on my heel, which is the more important parts for concerns for blistering, so I was always okay with that. The other reason that I considered changing is because the Solomon are a heel lifted shoe, and I'm not sure the rake on those shoes, but I have had plantar fasciitis problems for 5 or 6 years. It gets better at times and worse at times depending on how faithful I am with my stretching and my exercises and things like that. For the most part, it's been good recently, but I wanted to have a possible solution, and so many folks have said that the zero lift shoes, and I'll talk about what that means in a second, but that zero lift shoes would help the plantar fasciitis by stretching that tendon, that Achilles tendon, and I don't know all the mechanics of that, but the fact that your calf and that tendon were more stretched in what's supposedly a more natural walking position, therefore it might help to eliminate some of the tightness that causes the plantar fasciitis. So I wanted to give them the shoes a chance, and the zero rake position a chance to see if it would work. And so the first thing that I want to talk about then are what are the 2 differences that I think make this shoe pretty unique. The first thing, and I'll show this, you can probably see it in this image here, but the toe box on the Altras is so wide, it's almost humorous. It's so large. In fact, I have seen reviewers and stuff say that like their spouse wouldn't allow them out in public with these shoes, because it really is, and I'm not sure that you're going to be able to see it exactly in that image, but it really is quite large, and because of that, Altra calls that a foot-shaped shoe, and their point is simply that our feet are naturally wider in the toe area than they are in the heel area, and so you should have shoes that are made with the big wide toe area because that's the way that your foot is shaped. And I would say that my first reaction to that has been very positive. What I experienced was that in this shoe, the heel and the back of the shoe are probably at least as narrow and maybe even more narrow than other shoes that I've worn. And my heel never moved around in these, even though these, I'm going to explain in a minute, they're not particularly stiff shoes. They're more like a tennis shoe, really. And yet I had very, very little lateral heel movement, even on some of the toughest terrain I've walked on in my life on the Appalachian Trail. But even though they were tough, tight, not tight, but they were narrow and fit well in the rear. At the toe of the shoe, it was wide, and I had no contact at all with the front of the shoe, either on the sides or at the toe area, when I was actually walking. And one of the things that I discovered is I actually had to tighten the shoe much less than I normally would have. In fact, a couple days in, I had to go back and loosen the shoe because it was hurting the top of my foot. I was starting to get some soreness in the top of my foot because I was so accustomed to tightening a shoe pretty tight, to be able to not get any movement in my heel and so on and so forth. These were able to be much less tight and still be pretty stable through the heel and everything, while maintaining lots of room in the toe for the toes to not be rubbing against the inside of the shoe. So I did find the Altra foot-shaped shoe to be really helpful. I really liked that about them, and I will probably want to try another Altra shoe in the future because of it. I'll tell you why I'm not going to continue with this one in a minute. But I really liked the foot shape aspect of it. The second thing that is kind of unique about the Altras is they have what they call, I think they call it a balanced or a natural balanced rake or something like that. I can't remember the exact language. I'll put that on the screen. But essentially, this is a 0-degree lift, meaning that the heel and the toe of the shoe are the same distance from the earth. And in most shoes that you would buy today, the heel is slightly taller and up from the toe. You've got a little bit of a more cushion in the heel. Now, that is not a natural walking position, as Altra's point, and we've become accustomed to it, but they would say it's not a natural walking position. So the ability to then even that out, to bring that toe back, or that heel down to the same level as the toe, means that your Achilles is stretched a little bit more. Your calf is stretched a little more into what is considered to be a more natural walking position. These are not minimalist shoes. You will sometimes see that language to talk about zero lift, and they are zero lift like a minimalist shoe is, but a minimalist shoe is usually doesn't receive a lot of padding and so on. These shoes are padded similarly to other trail runners that I've had. So they're not minimalist shoes, but they are zero lift, so there's some similarity there, but the padding is the same as you would have it in any other trail runner. So it's kind of a neat concept. My experience with it is I really believe it has helped my plantar fasciitis. I did not experience any plantar pain during my Appalachian Trail hike or in the training prior to that hike. However, I did and have been experiencing some pain in my Achilles, and I just attribute that to getting used to the shoes. They will say on there that sometimes a break-in period can be helpful as you transition from it's kind of a typical shoe to the Altras to the zero lift, because your Achilles and other parts of your foot need to adjust to that new positioning, and so they do recommend that you spend a few weeks just sort of getting accustomed to them before you really stress yourself. I hiked in them around my neighborhood. I walked around my neighborhood to get accustomed to them for several weeks, and then went out on the Appalachian Trail for 60 miles on some pretty rough terrain, and I didn't experience any real negative aspect. I did have some stretching and some soreness in my Achilles, but it certainly was not hurting in a very serious way, and I think that probably as it gets stronger, then I won't have any of that pain at all, so I'm expecting that will go away. So the two things that I really wanted the shoe to do, it did really well. Some of the other things are just kind of general attributes. You can see that the tread on the shoe is pretty good. I felt that I had plenty of traction from that. You'll also see that there's plenty of flex in the shoe. It's not like some other trail runners that have a stiffer midsole, more like a boot. This one really does have a lot of flex, and so that's something that I'm actually going to try to get an Altra that has less flex. I'll tell you in a minute why, what I'm doing there, but But that's something that I think would actually help me, is to have less flex in my shoe. But I got no blisters. I hiked for 60 miles, including with damp feet at times, and had no blisters. So I consider that to be a pretty successful experience with the shoe. They vented really well. They dried out really well when I did get them wet on the hike. Everything about that I was really happy with. Two things, I think I would prefer one that has a little less flex in the sole, and so I'm going to look at what other shoes Altra has that has that. But the other thing that was really a disappointment, and the reason that these shoes are actually going to go back to REI even after a short hike on the trail, is that I've already experienced some damage to the shoe. So these shoes have only about 100 miles or so on them, and I'm just going to show you, hopefully that will zoom in and not on my face. You can see here where the shoe is coming apart in that area. You can see it coming apart in this area as well, and coming apart right here in this area. Some pretty big gaps there. Actually, you can see it coming apart in this area here too. Actually, that's out of focus. You can see it coming apart in that area as well. So kind of all around this this perimeter is the shoe is coming apart, and that's not going to work. When these only have about 100 miles, a little more than that, the 60 trail miles, and then maybe 50 or so miles around town. One thing I will say from the thru hikers that I met on the AT, these Ultras have become very popular among thru hikers. People are walking 2,000 miles and so on really rough terrain. One of the criticisms of trail runners will be, well, I need more support, more foot support and things like that. And I'm telling you that a lot of the people who are hiking 2,200 miles across the Appalachian Trail are wearing these Ultras, and other trail runners. They've become sort of the standard, and really you don't need more shoe than that for almost any hiking. But I do think that from what I have heard from them, that Ultras are only lasting maybe 300 miles for a pair of shoes, where most other trail runners, typical, you'd say 500 miles for most trail runners. So the life of them, according to many other thru hikers, is shorter than other trail runners, and they're not cheap. These shoes, I can put a link in the description to the shoe. They certainly are not super cheap, and yet they don't seem to have a long life to them. So I'm actually going to take these back, and on REI's great return policy, I'm going to put a link to the Amazon page in this description, because I certainly, if you would love to, if you'd be willing to purchase them from that link, then I'll get a small commission back for the work that I do for this channel. But I actually would suggest that you go in to an REI and buy the shoes, because then you have the great return policy that I'm going to get a chance to take advantage of for in this case, because REI will almost certainly replace these without concern. I think I'm going to try the Ultra Olympus, I believe it's called. It has a bit thicker sole, a little more padding on the sole, and some say that it will hold up a bit better, that it's actually made a little bit more ruggedly than the Altra Timp. So I'm going to try that, and I'm sure that I'll have a review after my upcoming Camino. I'm going to be walking on Camino in July for a section of Meseta, and so after I've had a chance to walk for a couple of weeks in them, then I will make sure to do a review on the Ultra Olympus, which I'll be buying as well. I hope that you found this helpful. If you would click the like button, that'll send it out to other folks, and hopefully this honest review will be helpful to other people. By the way, I did not receive these shoes. I paid full price for them. I didn't receive any kind of a discount, which is one of the reasons that I put that affiliate link. So if you would want to purchase things from Amazon, then that helps me to be able to pay for this channel. But certainly I don't receive any products for free or at discount rates for the channel. I hope that you found this helpful. Buen Camino, and I'll see you soon.